Tess built her career at GOY from humble beginnings as an intern after graduating from Washington State University's construction management program. She was recently named a Puget Sound Business Journal 40 Under 40 leader and chairs GOY's internal DEI committee. She came on to talk with us about empowering women and bringing diversity into the construction industry. Hello, Tess. Thanks for coming on with us today.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, Lisa. Thank you for having me.
Hi, thanks for coming, Tess.
So, Tess, tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into the construction industry.
Yeah, sure. So I am a 2006 Washington State COOG, construction management major, and I had a minor built into that program. I originally went to WSU because I was originally interested in the interior design program. And during my first semester, it was my mom that actually had mentioned construction management. A friend of mine from high school's mom was in the industry, and she said, maybe check it out and see if you like it. And so I got into that course spring semester and met with the director of the school and the director of the program and really liked it. And so I switched majors.
And so now you're in the industry. Who do you work for and what's your role?
So I'm a principal senior project manager at GLY Construction. We're a private, locally owned general contractor. We were founded in 1967. I'm one out of the 11 shareholders, principals. So I started off as an intern, and that's how I was connected to GLY through actually the program. And so after my internship between my junior and senior year, they offered me a full-time position, which I took. So I spent about 6 years as a project engineer and then moved to project manager, was a project manager about 4 years. And then I was promoted to senior project manager, which I did that position for about 3 years. And then in 2019, I became the first woman and BIPOC owner of GLY. So my career has mostly been commercial sector, primarily in the Bellevue and Seattle areas. Of my career, my favorite projects, which are hard to choose, right? But I would say I participated in the Mary's Place at the Reed Parade, and that's in Amazon's Nitro North and South campus in the Denny Triangle area, as well as I oversaw the Pivotal Ventures, the executive office for Melinda French Gates. Prior to the maternity leave that I just came back from, I was on the West Main project for Vulcan. I lead our DE&I efforts, and we just actually hired our first DE&I manager. So she and I are working closely as she's getting onboarded and familiar with the industry. She comes from the education background, and she's helping with initiatives, internal and external. I'm also married. My husband, Jeremy, is a project executive at a competing general contracting firm in the area. We met at school, so it's kind of nice because he knows the industry. He knows, we have basically the same roles. And I have 3 sons. So I have an 8.5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
Great. Well, you're very busy. And on top of all that, congratulations for being named a Puget Sound Business Journal 40 Under 40 leader. Tell us more about how that came about.
Yeah, thank you. I was really honored to be nominated and also chosen with an amazing group of peers in the area. The Puget Sound Business Journal does the 40 Under 40 program, which honors individuals from various industries who have not only made strides in their career, but also have a strong civic duty and are also contributing to our Puget Sound communities. These individuals have also established themselves as industry leaders before reaching the age of 40. So the process begins first with a nomination, an initial questionnaire, and then there's a final submission, which is reviewed, and then honorees are selected by a panel of judges. And then Puget Sound Business Journal does an initial announcement of the 40 honorees, and then each honoree is profiled, and then there's always like a little fun celebration at the end.
Great. Congratulations.
Thank you again.
Yes, Tess, I had a question. So I know that you're a very busy person being involved with groups like NAOP and the ACE Mentor program on top of your work at GLY. So what are some things that drive you to be involved with these organizations, and what do you think are the importance of promoting these?
Great question, Lisa. So I'm also involved at the WSU. I'm in the Construction Management Advisory Board. I've been doing that and connected to the program for about 13 years. So majority of my career, I was driven to give back and support a program that provided a great education experience and environment for myself. They're also focused on we've just started a group called Women in Construction for them, for the students in the program. And so that's something that I'm also very passionate about in supporting and help leading that effort. The ACE Mentor Program, if people are not familiar with that, ACE stands for Architecture, Construction, and Engineering. It's a great program that introduces our industry to students in high school. There's scholarships available if you do end up deciding to major in one of those disciplines. That was, for me, something that I really enjoyed because it was part of giving back to my communities. That's something that I'm passionate about. And I also joined because you can also network in there, because you have other industries, architecture, structural engineers, mechanical, electrical engineers that you can network. So I've been doing that for about 5 years active, and then also supported at a principal level. I took a step back when I had children for a few years. And so this is my first year back, which I'm really excited to engage with. NAOP is an industry organization that I'm relatively new to. Again, I was drawn to it because they have a community enhancement project. So once a year, a project is selected locally, and you can go out and volunteer for the day. Typically, you can bring children because the projects are pretty easy. And so we look at doing improvements on campuses. This last year was Washington Middle School that we focused on. I think the advice I would give to those who are looking to engage in industry organizations and why it is important is it's a great way to build your network. Not only for business development, but also for personal and professional. You can find other women in the industry, other women in BIPOC in the industry. You can find mentors outside your organization. Also, you know, when you become a project engineer and you get assigned to a project and that's on site, you can somewhat kind of be siloed, and you're only talking to that project team. And if you're on a large project, that can be a year to 2 years. And so the region, our region and our industry is very relationship driven. And so this is another way that you can get exposure to other clients, other firms, and build some friendships. Advice I would give is, you know, be selective, because this is time away from your family, you know, usually encroaches on personal time. And it also is a reflection upon you and your company, because you want to join committees, and that's how you really get more daily and close exposure to individuals. And usually committees, there's assignments and tasks and responsibilities. So you want to make sure you're fulfilling your end and you're meeting the promises that you're making. Looking back, I wish I would have joined earlier in my career, just because I didn't have children, like in NAOP, for example. So that would be some advice. And then this also gives you opportunities for training. So through Commercial Real Estate for Women, they offer a leadership training. So there's additional education and training component to that, which I also really, really like.
I see. Thank you. That's very, very insightful. And kind of going off on that advice talk, what other advice would you give someone like me who's about to enter the industry after college? And on the contrary, what are some advice that you hear often, but you think we can kind of ignore or you don't necessarily agree with?
So what advice I would give, you know, I was thinking about this, you know, what could I tell myself right out of college? I can't encourage enough, and I have, and I actually did this because it was given as advice to myself, is making sure you take some time off between finishing school and starting your career. It's okay to take a month off, 6 weeks, you know, take a breather, travel, or just hang out locally. That's fine. It's just nice to have that time. And you don't really get that until you kind of retire. So it's nice to prioritize some time for yourself that you're passionate about. Be proactive in your continued learning and training. I think some things, people come out of school with the attitude, well, now I'm done with that, and I'll just, do my career. And through your career, you're continuing learning, but also seek out, outside opportunities or trainings that you're really interested in. Don't be afraid to ask questions or for help. I think for me specifically, I struggled with that early on, but then I got over it pretty quickly because through my experience of asking the questions, the things that initially made me hesitant didn't come to fruition. So, I don't have a construction background. My parents aren't in the industry. I've never built formwork or put in a door frame, so I don't have that. And so I didn't want to be perceived as, the stupid girl who didn't know what she was doing or didn't belong in the industry and was asking this question. And I got over that pretty quickly. And I think that just takes time and self-confidence. Build and maintain your network. That was really reinforced in me by who is now Mark Kane, who is now a partner. But he always encouraged that, those that you're working across the table with on the design and on the client team, they're going to start to move up their career similar to you. And so those are the individuals that are going to be making decisions or advocating for you or your company. And so when you get off a project, it's easy to let those relationships kind of slide because you don't have that day-to-day exposure, but making sure you're very intentful about reaching out again. And it could be something as easy as an email, coffee, text, quick call. So it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. This next one is prioritizing self-care. I think, especially early on, if you're wanting to have a family, whether you're a woman or a man. And I think this has been reinforced through been reinforced in kind of an unexpected outcome from the pandemic of people being more prioritizing their time outside of work. And so when you do that early on, I think it becomes easier to do if you choose to have a family. And that's something that I still struggle with. And the last thing, and this was again told to me by our old Lee Kilcup, who was our CEO when I started, is make sure that you're aligning your personal values with the companies that you're looking to work with or to go work for. And because that just is something that's super important and just makes, that transition to your career and just that much easier. I can't, you did ask me what advice have I been given that I didn't think was very valuable. And I couldn't think of anything in particular. I think, if you do have that, with advice from anybody, I think you take and see how that applies to you personally. So
great. Well, you talked about people that have gone before you and maybe mentored you. So talk a lot more about, mentorship, championing things and some things you've seen in the industry. You obviously are giving back to ACE and other programs. Crew is out there to help. You mentioned some of those. Help us understand some more about that you've seen and experienced.
Yeah, so I think this was maybe, let's see here, 7 or 8 years into my career. I was told about a term, champion and mentor. I think a lot of people know what a mentor is, right? It's someone who has experience that you turn to for guidance, kind of like an advisor. It can be both internal and external within your company. It could be just a personal relationship that you've established. But champion was new to me. And so I had asked, what is that? And a champion is someone who's sitting at the decision table, who's advocating for you. So that's someone, at the C-suite level, the manager level that you've worked with, established a relationship with, or have reached out to, had conversations about what you're looking for in terms of what you want your career to be. And was a new term for me, and I can't advocate enough to others. And I always say this to anyone I meet, make sure you have that in a mentor. That person can be both a mentor and a champion, which I have had. It could be someone different, but it's someone who's at the decision table that you have a connection with that can advocate for you. So that helps both in your career development, but also in your career progression. And I would say specifically for the mentor, this relationship is going to be driven by you. You're the one who needs to come to that person with things that you're interested in or topics you want to talk about. You can't look at that relation as that the mentor is going to guide you unless you have that conversation up front. But that's definitely something that you're taking the wheel primarily of, and as well as the champion.
Great. And I want to ask a question to each of you. Tess, I'll start with you, then Lisa, I want to ask you the question too. So over my shoulder, there was my graduating class from construction management in 1994 from the UW, and it was over 80% men, kind of a male-dominated historically industry. So, Tess, you're championing and mentoring people, women of color, maybe in the construction industry. So first, Tess, tell me what you've seen over the years. And then Lisa, I want to ask you, maybe a little bit of what you're seeing currently as a student, maybe how things might be changing. So Tess, let's start with you.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough that within my graduating class, there was 4 women. I will say of the 4 of us, there's actually only 2 of us still in the industry. One, I believe she works for McCarthy, California, and then myself. The other 2 have since left. Of our graduating class, that was a pretty big percentage, but the class before me, there was no women. And I would say, I think our classes were 25 to 30. Now in the program, they're around 55, and every year, there's other women on the advisory board, and we always ask, when they talk about, we had 150 applicants for the program, it's like, well, how many were women? And it's still only 7 to 10. It's still a fairly low number. And so for me, that's just an opportunity to start looking at how can we change and impact the pipeline. You want to start at the very beginning of the pipeline. You can't really make that much impact, if you're coming in mid pipeline. So, that's what Construction and Inclusion Week is. That was launched 2 years ago. So one of the components is getting involved in the community. And so, because research has found at the age of 4, children can see kind of the gender roles. That's when they start perceiving that. And even at the 3rd grade level, that's when kids can have a pretty good attention span, but also be able to have the ability to think about the future and what they want to do. So we went into a classroom and just introduced construction as an opportunity, as a career. And then with ACE, that's another opportunity where you can engage with students who I'm leading a group now. There's about 25, 30 students in that group. Of those students, there's only one that wants to be a contractor. So it's just another way, unless you know someone in the industry, whether it's a relative or friend, it's still pretty unknown as a major. But I'm hoping as we move forward and there's conversations like this, there's opportunities for training through crew, and other wonderful organizations, and there's networking and industry organizations that are focusing on that we can continue to move the needle to the right and increase how many women come into the industry. And then, that adds to the next step of how do you retain them, right?
Great. Well, Lisa, you're now in it. Quickly, how did you get into find out about the CM program, and what do you see as boots on the ground in the classroom now?
Yeah, so I was initially interested in architecture, and then I realized soon that construction was much more interesting for me. It was more real life, very tangible, in my opinion. And so in my class, there's about 80 to 90 of us, I believe, total. And then there are about 10 of us women, which is much better than previous classes I've heard. And it's much more diverse than the classes I've seen before in terms of ethnicity and people coming from other countries as well, including myself. I'm initially not from the US. So that was one thing I see, that there's more diversity as the years go on. And the junior class right now, so I'm a senior right now, and we were my classmates and I were talking the other day, when we saw the junior class taking a class, we saw many more women. So that was really, really exciting to see how many girls there were. And in my internship and also in the classroom, I think I've received a lot of support for being a woman. And I think I was initially very scared of being in the construction industry because it seemed very hard to enter. There's a lot of guys.
I think that what you just said, Lisa, is so important. Seeing someone like you, and I struggled with that when I was going through my career. There's no women in senior leadership because a lot of people, women are the primary caregivers, and so they typically have to step back. This is a very demanding career. It's long hours. I think companies are more transparent now about how many hours to expect in construction versus when I graduated. But when I looked up, I couldn't see it. And it reinforces that if you can see it, then you can be it, right? And so, yeah, when I wanted to have kids, I wanted to meet with a woman whose husband was in the industry. They had children and she was in a senior leadership position. And there weren't that, and I had to look outward at my company. And yeah, it was only talking to her that I was like, okay, she made it sound possible. And so now when I meet women like you or anybody else from any other companies, it's like, I will meet with you however often you want. You can reach out to me at any time. So I just love that you said you didn't see anybody like you, because that just reinforces how important that is.
Yeah, and I agree. Going off of that, so yeah, prior to that, I didn't see many women in leadership. So that was something that I was scared of. But I think so this past summer where I interned, I was very lucky to work with a superintendent who is a woman. And also there were a lot of women in my team. It was very, very rare to see. It was female dominated actually when I was on the project. And so that was very nice to see and very empowering for me to be in that environment and to know that I can be in positions like that and lead the project. So that was something that I really enjoyed.
Well, good. It looks like the industry is in good hands going forward. And so, Lisa, thanks for coming on and sharing. And Tess, thank you for coming on. Final thing, if people wish to connect with you or some of the industries you've talked about, can you share how best to do so?
Yeah, I would say my work email, my cell phone, which I can give to you, or via LinkedIn as well. So any of those ways.
Good. We'll provide a link to those, whatever you give us. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, thank you very much for reaching out and for the opportunity and for having a Kugas. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tess.
Thank you, Lisa. Nice to meet you.